27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And there isn't one of us that doesn't want to be someplace else. This is what we do. Who we are.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
And boom. Welcome to Rambo and Frens. I'm still typing things, man. I'm a last minute type of dude. Welcome, everybody. I see all of you piling in on all platforms. Thank you very, very much for coming on what is an early show for Rambo and Frens. Typically, we've been going at 1 p.m. But the main show that I already had scheduled today wasn't happening until 3 p.m. because Miss Carly Bonet is a very busy woman, right? Everybody knows her channels. She clips away all day long. So she said she would be clipping until 3, but she would be happy to come on after that. So bing, a little light bulb went off in my head. And I thought, well, that leaves me with a whole open morning. Of course, I didn't think that maybe it would make the missus happy if I clean the house. I thought, why not try to shove another show into the day? So that is what's happening right now. I was able to call what have become 2 very good friends of mine. I got to be completely honest with you. Sometimes when you meet somebody in this movement, you just feel like there's a connection there, right? It's happened with Absolute and Stormy Patriot Joe. It's happened with guys like Pepe Deluxe, Awakened Outlaw for sure, right? I could run a whole list of people that it's happened with. But I will say specifically, Abs and Dave have become 2 guys that I have truly felt a connection with when it comes to this movement. So, I mean, so much so that I think I've loved on them so much that we made the joke like, hey, dude, I like girls. So as you guys all pile in here, let's just go ahead and get the party started. Let's hear from the boss, and we'll bring these 2 guys on.
I wouldn't miss a chance to talk to my friends. These are my friends.
Boom. News, treason, the whole pair on Rambo and Frens. Let me say hi to you first, Mark, because it's the first time you've been over here on this side, right?
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, bro. I'm really excited. You've been nothing but cool to me when I've come over there and hung out with you guys. So it's an absolute honor to have you over here as well. So thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Yep. Dave, what's going on, my dude?
What's up, brother? How you doing? It's
I'm doing good.
I wouldn't miss a chance to hop on with you, man. And looking forward to it. It takes as people know, it takes a lot to get me out of bed at like 9 in the morning to prep for this. And if I nod off for a minute, just yell. But no, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's always fun when we get together.
Yeah, without question. Just so everybody knows, I asked these 2 very last minute. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was yesterday. I'm like, yo, I got a whole open morning. Why don't we hang out? And you're like, yeah. And I didn't even care if we record it and play it later, but these guys were like, yeah, absolutely, we'll come on. It's your turn. You were on ours last time, so thank you very much. And we actually have a really cool show coming up, you and I, Dave.
Yeah.
We are going to, is that Tuesday? I think it's Tuesday.
Yep.
On Tuesday, we are going to be interviewing Red Pill 78, the one and only Zach Payne. So I look forward to that. But Zach is a very busy man. He podcasts all over the place. He is constantly on the move. So Zach was an amazing dude for even offering to come on, but Zach's able to do just like an hour. So I quick called Dave and I'm like, hey, do you want to help me with this? Because we can interview him for the hour and then we can do like an after show together to wrap up. And of course, Dave jumped right on it. So I'm excited about that show as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. And honestly, we joke about like getting up early and all these things, but when you text me yesterday, I was like, hell yeah, I'll come on, because it's we all know how it is, right? All this stuff happens. Like we see all these different things and we're posting it. It's like you want someone to talk to about this stuff. You're like, I'm constantly like texting you or Mark, or even was fortunate to be messaging with Stormy the other day on X, because like this stuff happens. Like you want to talk to somebody about it. So as much as I joke about getting up early, this is not like work. This is it's enjoyable. We get to sit here and talk about all the stuff that we can't go out in the street and talk to everybody else about. So, again, we're really happy to be here.
Well, I want to keep it completely real for just a second while everybody piled in. You know what was one of the coolest honors that I've had since going to my own platform is I believe it was last week. The show that I did on my platform and the show where I was the guest on your platform both hit the Rumble leaderboard on the same day. That was stinking cool. Like I was really excited. I gotta be honest. Like I'm just keeping it real with you guys. So with that being said, today I'm constantly trying to break records. Like I'm very goal oriented, right? So sometimes when you look at numbers and all that stuff, you talk about it, the numbers don't really matter, except for that they kind of do, right? They kind of it gives you something to work towards. It's a positive goal. Even my competitive nature, where I'm constantly looking at other people that are doing this and like how well they're doing, and my goals to try to catch them or keep up or whatever. I think if you look at it in the positive way that I mean it, it's healthy, right? Of course, you're not out here trying to beat everybody down. No, we should be working together, but together we rise, right? So I do set these little goals in my head. And today we have the opportunity to have two shows that are on this platform, maybe potentially do that, because this audience has been so active with hitting that thumbs up that we've been making it almost every time, your show and my show. So that's my little ploy. I hope you guys are all on board with that. So with that being said, whatever platform you're on, hit the positive affirmation button, thumbs up on YouTube, thumbs up on Rumble. If you're over on Twitter, leave a comment, share the show, and of course YouTube, which is brand new, just monetized. I don't know what that means. They'll probably kick me off now that I clicked that button, but we'll see what happens, right? So,
and Rambo, you're being humble as usual. I want to congratulate you because I noticed on X you just crossed over 175,000 X followers. That's nothing to sneeze at. And to your point about numbers, like yeah, they do matter. Not because we're trying to be, it's not an ego thing, right? In order to do what you do so well, you have an analytical mind, right? And how else can you analyze how people are reacting to what you're doing, right? And do the best possible job than by looking at numbers. Like that's kind of the beauty of social media. You have all these different metrics to look at. So it's not an ego thing. It's how, I did this. Oh, that flopped. It didn't get a lot of views. Okay, let me tweak this. It's a way to self-improve and make what you do better. So the numbers do matter. And yeah, man, getting on the leaderboard, that's nothing to sniff at, because for people that don't know, it doesn't go by views. It goes by likes, right? So there are thousands, I believe tens of thousands potentially of channels on Rumble. And so when you go on the leaderboard and like somebody like Rambo comes up above like Russell Brand, what is that saying? It's saying that even with a smaller audience, your audience is more engaged and they're reacting to what you're doing. So it's actually one of the really cool things that Rumble does. I hope they don't change it, because it makes it so that somebody like a Rambo or even us, can come up, above these bigger accounts because it's by engagement. So yeah, man, it's nothing to sniff at that thousands of podcasts that you're in the top 50. That means a lot.
It really does. And I know when I say this, people are going to roll their eyes, but you swipe through whatever it might be, shorts on TikTok or YouTube or wherever, and I just happened to swipe on the one that was Eminem, right? I know Eminem, sue me, but he said something I found to be profound, right? He talked about how he's actually a pretty private dude. Like he always wanted the attention for his music, but the goal was always to like for him, it was a Jay-Z, right? I know we'll throw up in our mouth a little bit, but when Eminem, you can understand what he's trying to say. So he always wanted Jay-Z to think that he was dope or whatever verbiage he used, right? Well, for me, it was always the AOs or the Carly Bonnets or the you guys. Like I just always wanted them to like acknowledge that I was part of this too. And that's happened recently. And that is freaking awesome. It's really cool.
Absolutely. And
we don't,
go ahead.
We don't deal with, Nielsen boxes and stuff like that. When you're dealing with regular TV or radio or anything like that, these people rely on the audience and then the sponsorship. We're not getting paid for this. There's no sponsorship here or anything else. So when we're out here and you see the views, and then like we had last week at the Unity Tour, you get the personal recognition when people actually come up to you and appreciate what you've done. That's the reward for doing what we're doing. And we know that we're getting the message out to larger and larger audiences. And the more people that are informed, not only the better are we doing our job, but it's just a matter of you're getting people informed. And that's the whole goal of all of this. And people are starting to get it.
Well, speaking of that, Mark, are you guys going to the Reawaken tour?
We will be there.
So will I. It's going to be awesome.
Great.
Can't wait.
Are you both going to GART?
Yeah.
You're both going.
Just booked our hotel yesterday, and that's another thing, Rambo. I had a lot of people. Well, I've had this thing in my head for like a year since I started podcasting, and then we started the platform, and Mark came in, and it was one of those like, I've said it a bunch of times. Everyone knows this. I'm like, there's going to be this time, and it's fast approaching, where all of us are going to be not only doing this kind of stuff, but like we're not just going to be faces on screens to each other anymore. We're going to actually get together in person. And I promise you, a year ago when I started thinking that, I was like, all right, that's just one of those, come on, you're getting out over your skis type of thing. And now it's happening. Like Mark said, we were fortunate to be on stage at an event last week and meeting all these people. And now like, twice in a month, we're going to get to hang out with you at two different events. And yeah, it's all happening, man. It's all happening. And it's just the beginning of a lot to come, because the more and more people that wake up to this stuff, the more of a need there's going to be for all these different events. They're all just going to keep growing, and there's going to be more of them. So it's, I think it's going to be really, really therapeutic for all of us at these different events to get together like face to face. And I'm looking forward to it. Really am.
I want to, every time that concept comes up, that like celebration at the end where we all get together, like these events, I want to give a big shout out to somebody that's a very good friend of mine, but he literally named himself after that, which is Scott Zimmerman. He named himself Beer at the Parade. And the idea was that we would all have a beer at the parade at the end of this thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's really cool.
Absolutely, man.
So I heard this rumor that there was an inside joke that that Mark's hair might not be real.
Possibly one of the most common comments we got when we first started podcasting. And yeah, it's become a running joke between us. I'll get on or off the air. I'll say, we get comments about the show. It was a really good show. I said it had to be the hair, Mark. It's always the hair. But yeah, Mark, why don't you dispel the rumor, Mark? Is it real?
It's real, and it's so luxurious.
Have you ever seen Trump? This happens to Trump all the time because of that hair he wears, right?
Yep.
What was the greatest joke? Oh man, remember when somebody made fun of his hair and he a wet raccoon, and he said the wet raccoon doesn't have $7 billion effing dollars in the bank. Yeah, that was great. And there was a recent one, which is why I brought up the inside joke. So let's just to start the show out fun. Listen to Trump. Just I don't know. It could have been 19 rallies ago, but I think it was yesterday. He's been doing so many rallies, but listen to this, dude. How can you not love this guy?
I was left behind, but I had my GTO. I was something, man. I'd put that top down. See, in those days, I didn't mind when the hair waved. I'd go fast, and that hair would be waving, that blonde hair, and I'd say, who the hell can take me? Nobody. Today, I'm a little more careful. I want it to be. I want to cover up that little area up there. It's a little bit soft up there. Cover it up. No, it was great. But you did. You had the greatest product. It was just fantastic. And
he's awesome.
Best. He's the best. He's a riot. And you know, he was at the Detroit Economic Club. And you know me being a armchair economist, I guess at best, if you can call it that. I'm always looking at the numbers, and he said something. You know, he's starting to put this giant list together that I don't want to say the N word, and by N word I mean Nasara, because that is a whole other whole other conversation. No, yeah. Because again, that's a whole nother show, and I'll go on the record like, yes, I believe Nasara is real. I don't believe it's real the way most people present it. So I tend to focus on the tangible stuff and like constitutional law, which I think we all agree on, and you know, sound money, which we all agree on. But the tax system, I think most people are pretty dialed into the fact that it's going to change very, very significantly. And you look at this list he's starting to put out: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Even things like reducing, you know, he said he's going to reduce the cost of housing by half and energy by half. How exactly do you do that without some components of what is in that Nasara type of thing, right? There's no other way to do it than with something like sound money. And then he just added yesterday, apologize, the phone in the background. He just also added recently in the last couple of weeks, he added he's going to cap credit card interest at 10%. Well, you know, people got to think through. You can't just do that. You know, that's not just something the president or, you know, it would certainly be a stretch to get Congress to do it, right? So how is he going to do it? And then now he just added yesterday, he said that he's going to, I'm absolutely completely blanking on what he said between the phone and the comments going.
The comment was really funny.
The comments, dude, the comment threw me off because it's a running joke, right? Mark, I guess you didn't get the memo from General Flynn, because Rambo and I and Patriot Underground and a whole bunch of other people are
the sweatshirts and hats.
Yeah, the sweatshirts and the hats. It makes us operators for the Flynn network. So I guess you didn't, either you're not in it or you didn't get the memo.
No, I go back to the trucker interview that we did. I think we had already finished the interview, or maybe it was during the show. But when I said the thing about, you know, how come I'm the only one here who's not wearing a hat?
Yeah.
And he said, I went back to the hair. He says, because you're the only one here who's got hair.
Yeah.
Well, wait, hold on, Dave.
I remember what he said now. Go ahead. Finish.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No. You got to go.
I'm glad you guys talked for a minute because I was able to remember what the hell I was going to say. Sorry, guys. It's early for me. It's what he added yesterday to that list is that he's going to make interest on auto loans completely tax deductible. Right now, what's the comment that I got the most when I said that? But wait, I thought a lot of you guys say there's going to be no more income tax. Yeah, likely that's something we're going to move to a tariff system. That's what I personally believe. But like, can he come out and say that now? You know, I think it's if you look, it's like everything else in this operation. It's narrative that is ratcheting toward the point that we know is coming. But if he stood up there at any given point and said, I'm going to eliminate interest on car loans, or I'm going to eliminate the tax on this, Well, that would totally skew the media, and then you'd have all the economists coming out and debating, how could you do that? This model doesn't work, and it would dominate the news cycle. So he's just feathering it in, and we can all none of us completely agree or know what's going to happen. But in my humble opinion, everything he's doing is, Ruby Ray Media said it right in the comments. He's inching towards no income tax, ratcheting in that direction, 117%. Because if you, not to get in a whole nother conversation, in fact, there's a lot of really good clips that have been going around. I think Rambo, I think you shared a couple of them. And I think Abs might have also, where he started talking about tariffs and how in the it's interesting that you pick 1880s and 1890s, like kind of right after that 1871 inflection point. And so he's pointing to that period after 1871, but before 1913. And he spoke about how that was the wealthiest the country had ever been. And at that time, we were funded on a tariff-based system. And that's what I think people miss in all this conversation, is that if you go back to the original, like the Federalist Papers and everything, that's how the government was structured to be funded, was through tariffs alone. And people can argue till the cows come home. The math is very simple. If you do it right, you reduce the size of the federal government, you run it mildly efficiently, like mildly compared to where we are now, and you exercise the right tariff policy, you don't need income taxes. So that's what he's inching towards. So he just can't come out and say these things. But if you just start to put, and I'm kind of keeping a running list at some point, maybe I'll write something up or we'll do a show on it. But we've seen it. He just keeps dropping in these things that not only is it inching towards it, but all of them on their own. Like let's think about eliminating taxes on tips. Well, can the president just do that? Can he walk in and he said on day one, I'm going to do it, or within the first, when I take the oath? Well, can the president sit down and write an executive order that eliminates tax on tips or overtime? Nope. Got to go through Congress. So how is he so confident he can do it? There's something else in play. Go ahead, Mark.
No, we're already at the point. I think both of our audiences are aware enough. They know it's done. And 90% of the stuff that he's talking about is already done and in place. It's already taken care of. But you can't, in this climate that we're in right now, and in the situation where visually and to the normies, you still got Sleepy Joe in office and Camel Toe running for president, et cetera, et cetera. Where are you going to go? You can't put it out there because that's going to drive people nuts. They're not going to know what anybody's talking about. How are you going to do this? Blah, 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 blah. The people who know that it's, excuse me, the people who know that it's a movie can accept that it's a movie and know it's going to be coming. You can't just throw a movie onto the general public. They're not going to get it. They're not going to understand it. And like we discussed before, the simplest thing, anybody, even, if fake Biden wanted to do it right this second, if they wanted to cut, electric bills in half, as we discussed before, all you got to do is eliminate that delivery fee. Boom, your bill is half what it used to be. And Clinton enforced that back in 2000 by allowing competition in the business and opening up fair trade in and amongst the utilities. These are things that can be done in a day, but the rest of it, it's got to be trickle down information. Instead of trickle down economics, it's going to be trickle down information until these people are visually gone. However, that's going to be, and none of us know how that's going to be yet.
And Rambo, you're good at you do it probably better than anybody in terms of analyzing what he says and then connecting it to like kind of the fifth generation warfare side of things. So to Mark's point, he said multiple times he's going to cut the price of housing in half, right? Okay.
He just said the same about energy.
And energy, right? And energy, Mark, I just not to push back a little bit. You can reduce the price of energy a lot by eliminating what Clinton did. Absolutely. I think half is a big stretch, though. I think there would have to be another component of that. But either way, that housing, let's just say, how can anybody tell me how, without massive, quick changes in the economic system, like a gold-backed currency or other things? But we could argue that for a long time. But Rambo, this is the way you look at things, right? That is a beach ball on a tee for a corrupt media to come out and say, Mr. President, you keep saying this. How are you going to do it? Don't you find it interesting? And this goes to show the white hat control, in my opinion. That don't you find it interesting that no one sat him down and called him out on that? And these absurd promises you're making, like you're going to cut housing in half, that says a lot to me.
I can tell you. I want to jump in on this. So look, Q told us to think mirror. Okay. I kind of look at everything that way. I look at it through the lens of how would military intelligence, which is what I believe is in control right now, whoever that might be, how would they expose the corruption while also solving the issues? Okay. I'm going to give you an example. The wide open border. It's being messaged to us that there's human trafficking, that there's child trafficking, that there's drug trafficking. It's being messaged to us that there's gangs and there's people out of business, insane asylums, and everything else that's super negative about open borders, so that the population becomes aware of the very real threats. Now, at the same time, Donald Trump has come out and said in speeches, and no one even wants to acknowledge it, that we need some immigration if we're going to go through with this plan, which is what you guys are talking about, because we are going to lower taxes and bring back all of the we're going to go back to this industrial boom, right? We're going to bring back all of the companies that were taken from us. Detroit will get their car companies back, right? Across the board. Well, if we were to just bring all of those companies here right now, would we have the manpower to staff that type of industrial boom? Of course we wouldn't. We wouldn't. They're going to make more jobs than we have population. Donald Trump has come out in speeches and literally said we need some of this migration. So then I go and I look, and there's ankle bracelets on some of them. They're being given cell phones and Mac cards. They're being put in certain areas where then we get told they're eating the cats and the dogs. Except for that, these are the areas where it looks to me like they're planning to build some of these businesses that they're bringing back from across seas. So it's literally the most clear example I can look at where we are exposing the very real threats, and we are also making the solution for what is going to become a problem, so that we can live in this society that you guys are talking about, this potential N-word, right? So, I mean, and that goes, look, there's so many operations going on that southern border that it's absurd. I still 117% believe that we used some of those migrants to fulfill shortfalls in our enlistment. And they knew it was going to happen because they installed Joe Biden, the greatest red pill that there's ever been, as resident. So if you install him as resident and you're going to make it look like communists are taking over our country, well, the silent majority is not going to have their kids go sign up for the military. It's just not going to happen, right? Nobody wants to go fight for somebody that looks like they're a warmonger, that looks like they're completely yellow, and the whole world is laughing at them. I'm not going to go sign my kids up for that. So what did they do? They set up a sting operation on the border. They filled some enlistment shortfalls. They brought in and vetted. I believe they would have had to vet some of these people. They messaged the very real threats. I mean, this is the level of military intelligence operations that we're watching go down right now. That you can't convince me otherwise. Like, I've now watched obsessively Donald Trump's words, what's happening, what the news is saying. Donald Trump told me that the news is fake. Donald Trump told me we're sort of in his second term right now. So if I'm wrong, we're all screwed. But if I'm not wrong, I'm right.
I think you're right. I've been writing for this. Mark and I have been podcasting about this since we started. And I actually just found a clip I want to run in a second. But let me just say I agree with everything you said. I would take it a step further. I believe some of these military-aged males that are here are actually operators, like not in addition to what you said, are actually operators working directly with the military on actual
100%.
Think about all the people that have done such a great job. And this is, again, one of the most tangible ways to prove that we're under a worldwide military operation right now. It's just simply watch the radar every day. When I look down the road from here and I look at a civilian airport here on Long Island, and there's an Indonesian C-17 taking off, like, somebody please explain to me how that's happening, right? And what is a C-17? It's a transport plane. Well, what do they move on transport planes? Equipment and people, right? So I've even speculated, and then you look at Manhattan right down the road is a great example. Like, and by the way, Rambo, I want to compliment you. You made one of the greatest points about what we're saying right now that I've heard anybody say, which is they keep showing you New York City, right? What did you say about? You say it, please. I want to give you the credit.
Which part?
About the New York being a melting pot. Would you even notice? Right?
Oh, of course you wouldn't.
Right? You wouldn't even notice if they were being invaded by migrants, because it is one of the country's greatest melting pots, right? That's what you said on our show.
Yes, you're right. And my point was, the only thing that would make you aware of something would be amplified messaging in that direction. Because if they, just like COVID, they pumped the death counter, right? Everybody stood 6 feet apart. We were scared. We all pretended like putting plastic on the credit card machine was going to do anything, as the next person came up and touched the same plastic, right? Like, I don't even understand. Some of it was just so insane. But that amplified messaging, all of a sudden, New Yorkers are looking around. Well, yeah, there is a lot of Hispanics. Okay. If they weren't amplifying that message, you would have not noticed a damn thing.
Yeah. And then you look at it just pragmatically and you say, well, what am I actually seeing? I'm seeing the Roosevelt Hotel over and over and over and over with fences around it. And then they told you they were, or a couple of places, one other shelter that, like, Scott Libido does a great job pointing out in Staten Island. By the way, what happened to that? Because that whole Staten Island was being overrun with migrants and everyone was out in the streets every night. What happened to that? You see, these things keep happening that at the moment, in my opinion, it's exactly what you're saying. It's amplified messaging. And then what happens to many of us in the movement is there's so many things going on that we don't look back and say, hold on, what happened to that? Like, what happened to Staten Island being overrun? My X feed was blowing up with that, and then it just went away. Kind of like I always point to East Palestine, the Chernobyl of America, and I've spoken to people on the ground there. And yeah, they have some issues, but it's not to the level of that. So this all just screams narrative deployment, and it's working. Spy balloons. Yeah. I mean, it and over and over and over. But I'll die on that hill of the migrant invasion. It's something I discuss with some normies, or I'd say I have a couple of people that are Alex Jones level normies, and they're flipping out about the border. I'm like, prove it. Like, listen, we're told now, I think that it's up to 21 million people. It's just the number they're giving you is absurd. Like, people need to really slow down and think. If even 5 million people came across the border, and they are pointing specifically to Texas, like, you guys ever leave, like, a football game in a small town, like at a college, and see what, like, Penn State or WVU or any of those look like when just 60,000 people enter a town? Or look at Sturgis, right? Like 100,000 people go to. It's like, it looks like ants coming out of the buildings. There are people. Where is that image? Where is that video? Where is the town in? Yeah, we've gotten Mary Jo down in Texas has migrants on her ranch, but you'd see literally towns choked to the gills with people, and we haven't. And then you have a number of good people that it's very easy to show people the same two places in Laredo. I think it was Laredo or whatever it was. The same two places with all the people And by the way, what about the other 2,998 miles of the border, right? We see nothing. And also, by the way, while we're on the subject of the border, do you remember, if we just go back to like January, February, remember we were going to have a civil war. Remember that? The invasion, and Biden's going to send the National Guard, and Abbott's like, no, and the Cajun Army's going down there. What happened to that? Why is it not on? Why is the border not on Fox News anymore? Why? Because they've moved your eyes from the border into the cities. That's why. Because if we still had millions of people going in, wouldn't somebody go down there with a drone or a helicopter and say, oh, by the way, where are those images we got from January, February? They just disappear. Why? Because the military, the psychological operations moved on to, now they're in your city, and that's what they want you to see.
I want to add to it. Look, let me make something perfectly clear, because I do think that we're exposing the operation a little bit when we talk about this stuff, because we've been able to separate our emotions and weed through what's really going on. And I think that that's really good for the people that see that this isn't right, because nobody wants to walk around feared up. I mean, what's the opposite of faith, right? So I want everyone to know that I believe that the messaging that we're being given is of very real threats. I like to drive that point home. I believe what they're exposing is absolutely 100% what would have happened to this country. And they're doing it at an accelerated rate so that we see and stand up and do something about it. So now that we made that point perfectly clear, understand that I don't think we're just being lied to. I think that we're being shown the truth while they are also correcting a lot of the issues. Now, you want examples of the fifth generation warfare and Donald Trump's words? While they're messaging all of this fear porn to show us the very real threats, you're seeing things like Donald Trump goes to the border and he visits with Abbott in Texas, and there's literally a military base. He's yelling across the river at migrants that are looking to cross. There's barbed wire, and a mile away, the gates are wide open. Then Joe Biden goes and visits an area it's got no traffic at all. That is fifth generation. They're messaging something, right? Then we see military age males come and they get put in single file lines. They get put onto white buses and they get taken to Martha's Vineyard. They get dropped off in Martha's Vineyard. That is literally a photo op. And then they take them out of Martha's Vineyard. And if you followed the buses and the tail numbers from there, they went to military bases. Somebody explain that to me, if it wasn't something more than fifth generation warfare in amplified messaging.
Well, it makes exactly. No sense. And if you do your homework, I know you have, Mark has, most of your audience probably has, and you go back and everything that's happening now, you can find evidence of it happening in 2008 to 2015. Yep. Do people really believe that they just started busing migrants around in the last 3 years? No. Do people really think that they just started letting people in and giving them money over the last 3 years? No. It's an instant replay of exactly what went on during the Obama administration in particular, while most of us, myself included, wasn't paying attention. That's why you had this divide in the country in 2016. Even to me, to be perfectly honest with everyone here, in 2016, when he started talking about building the wall, and the actual true numbers showed that the border was like in the top 2 or 3 issues that got him elected, I knew there was a border issue, but it actually, living in New York, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, like that it was. And why was that? Because the people that were down in the South that ran businesses and actually saw it with their own eyes, they saw what was happening back then, and us up in the North, we didn't. So it's exactly what you're saying, Rambo. They're taking what those people knew 10 years ago and were complaining about and got Donald Trump elected with, and they're showing it to all the sleepers in New York and Chicago and everything else that weren't seeing it.
Do you know how Trump says that Biden took and he sold the rest of the wall for 10 cents on the dollar? Do you know who he sold it to?
Texas, wasn't it?
Yep. And they're still building the wall.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
But see, Reva, there's an example of your logic, man. Like everyone stopped short to go, he sold the wall. And I go, but ask him where he sold it to. Texas. He didn't sell it to China. He didn't put it on eBay. He sold it to Texas. Can I show a clip real quick? Because
please,
this is why these shows are fun.
Fix the country, got to make sure.
Oh, not that one.
And then
No, we'll get to that in a sec. Sorry, that was my bad. No,
good.
My apologies. I jumped the gun with that one.
Okay.
Listen to, going back to what you were saying. Let me just set this up real quick. Going back to what you were saying about military, the migrants being part of this, right? Which we have plenty of empirical evidence to point to that. This is why I enjoy doing this, man, because when we all talk to each other, it like triggers things in our minds. It's hard to remember all this stuff, but and I just went back and actually found a clip. This is December 3rd of 2023, so almost a year ago. And just to set it up, if you guys remember the headlines at the time, and this was MJ Truth that pulled this clip, but at the time we were getting all this story. Remember the 26,000 military age males they kept showing us, and they were showing you, Mark points out all the time, they were showing you like the lineup. At this time it was the Chinese, and they were all lined up and they had the same backpacks and the clean shoes and all that, right?
Yep.
So they were trying to put out this narrative to people that, oh my God, we let in 26,000 military age males, right? So let's listen to Trump. It's that second one that says 26,000. Let's listen to what he said.
1,000 people from China, all young males. Okay? So what's going on with that? 26,000 people just was reported over a short period of time. This isn't a long period of time. So what are we, building a little army in our country? And we have a guy.
So he says, what are we doing? We're building a little army. Now, can you just give me that the share screen, my other screen there? You talked about the shortcoming in the military, right? Just a minute ago. Rambo, what if I told you the shortcoming was exactly 26,000 people?
This is my post. MJ stole this from me.
All right.
That's really funny. No, it's blowing my mind though. Like, okay, I shouldn't have said stole because information is free and I love that everybody's sharing it. But when this happened, I was in the middle of writing my huge thread and I picked up on this instantly. 26,000 was exactly the number of the shortfall for if you add the 3 military. This is literally my post. So if you added together, it was 10,000, 10,000, and 6,000.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Are we going to call that coincidence? And that's why we say this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad other people are talking about it.
Yeah. And we, I whether you or MJ or whoever it was that caught it at the time, it was something I started talking about because that this whole string right here, and you could pull that down now if you want. When you guys started talking about that, it immediately jumped out at me because I was sitting here looking at what's going on in New York City and seeing that it just didn't make sense. And then you connect to what Trump is saying, like, how is he so confident he can get them out because of what you were saying, the ankle bracelets and everything else. And then, just recently we've seen actual like non-Q on the ground citizen journalists in Manhattan showing that other hotel in Midtown, I forget the name of it, where it's literally being occupied by the Marines and the Army right now. So once again, truth versus narrative. That's the way I look at it. Truth versus narrative.
I shouldn't bring this all back up because it hurts people's feelings. But have you ever seen my threads on this?
I'm sure I have. Yeah.
I'll send you some because it gets deep. It's provable that they were using migrants. Like that's a really good part of it. But that thread gets really deep, really, really deep. But you can literally prove that, at least in part, I would say a small part of the operation going on at the border was to fill shortfalls in enlistment. And you know who made it? You know who expedited the process to allow that to be legal? It was Barack Obama in his second term. Barack Obama in his second term did many, many things that helped this plan. I don't know if that means he was captured. I don't know if he was a good guy planted. I don't know if it was the good guys that used his things against him. I don't know. But the
Rambo,
second term of, go ahead.
it wasn't, just so everyone knows, if I'm remembering correctly, it was an executive order he signed to some effect?
Correct.
About
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, he expedited the process. It's always been legal for our military to offer citizenship through enlistment. They always had a certain criteria they had to meet. They had to meet a vetting criteria. They had to do so much time. They had to pass a test. But if they were to serve honorably, they would be offered citizenship for serving that way. The policies that Barack Obama, the executive order, whatever it was that he signed, expedited that process and allowed it to happen in 1 year. And what is happening right now, as far as this conversation is concerned, is taking advantage of that executive order that Barack Obama signed. I always throw in, I use this one all the time, so my people are probably sick of hearing it, but when it comes to fifth generation warfare, Barack Obama sat in front of a camera and he said, if I could have a third term, I'd sit in my basement and I'd use an earpiece and I'd tell the president what to do. And that piece of video was used to convince the country that he was telling Joe Biden what to do. And I don't believe that's true at all. So it's just another point to throw, another stick to throw on the fire that I believe that Barack Obama was at least captured, if not, like I hate to say good guy, like I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but this is way deeper than people understand.
I think you can easily make the case that Obama has been in check to some degree or another since 2014, certainly 2015, because you talk about an executive order like that. Why would you do it? You say to yourself, well, you see the degree to which we say this, we talk about this all the time, right? You say whatever you want about these people, how evil they are, how sick they are. One thing they're not is stupid. Like, these guys put webs of things together that all of us combined can never think of. So to think that they would, when you go back to the drops and it explains to you that POTUS was asked to run with certain assurances in place, right? I would imagine one of those assurances is we're going to do the best we can for you to die, right? So some of the stuff Obama didn't do, like in other words, look at what we're living through now, at least what they're trying to show the people now about what they're doing to try to stop Trump. And yet they didn't do any of that. He got elected, and other than the usual shenanigans of a few people standing up and objecting to the certification of the electors in 2017, which went nowhere, they didn't do anything. Yeah, they did the Russia stole the election, but they could have done so much more, and we certainly know that now. So that points to it. He could have closed Guantanamo Bay with the stroke of a pen. I mean, at the very least, you're going to make sure that you don't have that facility there for them to put all of you in. Didn't do that. On and on and on. All this. So, at the very least, and when you understand what we now know, which is basically that the military in 2012 was at a pivot point, and they said, well, there's we got a problem. There's one of two ways we can do this. We can either do a kinetic coup, and it's going to be destroy the country for the next 50 years or maybe longer, or we can execute this plan. Well, it would make logical sense that you couldn't have done it without getting somebody like Obama and probably a number of other people into some level of check at that point.
Well, what about the possibility, if you really think a little off kilter about it, you go back to, what was it, 99, 98, when they allegedly had Clinton at gunpoint to sign Nazara into effect, and then got double-crossed, that this time, when they were going to pull the coup, but knew the consequences of it, decided we're going to hold them in check, and really hold them in check. And that started the war right there.
Yeah, I mean, 9/11, once again, doesn't matter what. Rambo, let me inject something real quick, because just for your audience that might not know our position on this. I have a lot of people that come in. They say, "Well, Nasara is I don't believe in Nasara," and I said, "So you don't believe in gold-backed currency like we're supposed to have? You don't believe in constitutional law? You don't believe in elimination of the Fed and the IRS? Like, let's just stop there. Like, that's what people. Those are the main components of it." So just to be clear on people, we're not talking about everybody wins the lottery and gets $10 million. I think that's personally absolutely fugazi. It can't work that way. So to be clear, but yeah, I mean, there have been people that have been trying to, I mean, at Rambo, at the very basis of this whole thing, everything we're living through right now is the Fed, is that system, because that system of theft is what funds everything we're trying to stop, right? Human trafficking, child trafficking, wars, weapon trafficking, all that, the devaluation of the dollar that's turned the society into a society that's going to rob and kill each other, on and on and on and on. So yeah, I mean, kind of like what Mark's saying, the Clinton thing, I've heard about that too. I don't know, but logically, you can certainly point to 2001. It wasn't just about the Patriot Act. It wasn't just about getting the opium out of Afghanistan. It wasn't just about, there was a financial aspect of that too. They were trying to stop, to set us back, and they did set us back again to be able to try to do even one of these components in the financial system, just something as simple as making the money sound again. They were trying to stop that. They also did it again in 2008. That's what 2008 was all about, collapsing the housing market. And really 2020, though, it was controlled. So yeah, but all of these things, they've consistently been able to step in on any of these type of things and stop it. And going back to your original point, I think it just should be almost common sense at this point. It shouldn't trigger anybody to say that Obama is at the very least controlled and has been playing some role in favor of our team since probably 10 years ago. To me, that's the only logical way to look at it.
And we just had somebody that said, "Oh, stop," right? And with all due respect and love to that comment, I understand why you feel that way. But also, with all due respect and love, we have now looked very deeply. And what you're saying, Dave and Mark, when it comes to Obama, I think is right. Again, I don't know. I don't know if it's good guy. I don't know if it's controlled. I don't know if it's the white hats using what they were trying to do against them. Maybe you can try to discern that for yourself. But some of the things that Barack Obama did, similar to Mike Pence not certifying on J6, it was used to further the plan. That was supposed to happen. Same with some of the things Barack Obama did. And it's funny that this conversation comes full circle to when I started streaming to begin with, because me and my old partner did not agree on Nasara, right? And the reason we didn't agree was because of some of the propaganda that surrounds that whole Nasara Jasara thing, right? I did not buy it for a second, and I'll be honest with you. But that's because, I was told that the switch was going to get flipped tomorrow, every day, right, for like 3 years, right? And I was told about this big hopium-filled idea of what it was. But I will give him credit. My old partner, I think, believed a lot along the lines, if I'm understanding you correctly, as you do, that there is a constitutional legal pathway for this to be a reality. So I'm not going to knock it, because I've been wrong so many times before, but that's why I've always stayed away from it because of, but at the same time, that would kind of go against who I am, because Q was destroyed. Q was attacked. Q was made to look like some fat kid in his basement LARPing, right? But I didn't shy away from that. Now, did I? So I'm open to the conversation, but I will say that I think it's the hopium cloud of propaganda that surrounded the two words that are Nasara and Jasara that just made me never want to talk about it. Does that make sense?
1,000%. And in fact, Mark and I probably don't talk about it as much as we should, and possibly for that reason. It's not, and it does kind of go against what we're supposed to be doing, but it's if you know that people are going to react a certain way and get triggered and it's going to overwhelm the conversation of everything else you're trying to do, then it's probably best to minimize it. But yeah, Mark and I were literally talking about this the other night till 3 a.m. By the way, I like girls. I'm just going to say that. No, we were hanging out. We were having that exact conversation, Rambo, about the difference between the possible realities and the hopium on that. But let's just real quick go through a few things. Constitutional money. I think we all agree that has to happen. There's absolutely a path for it. There is simply no possible way to cut housing in half and any of these other things without sound money. You can't do it. The second piece is Trump's talking about paying down the debt and all these other things. Listen, do the math. Okay, I've said this on another podcast. Where we are as a country, Trump could be president for the next 40 years. You're not paying that debt off in the current system. There's just no way to do it. So it goes back to without revaluing your own currency and backing it and making it a finite number of dollars, not this infinite number. That's eliminating inflation. Can't do it without a gold-backed currency. You simply can't. And on and on and on. There's no way to do it without it. Listen, I'm going to throw another one out there. I know is not a fun subject for a lot of people. A revaluation of the currency, which, with all due respect to the people out there that work on that, that is where a lot of the hopium comes from. I personally own currency. Why not? $200, buy a bunch of currency. Cool. But do I? First of all, Trump said it. You go back to, it was 2017. It was on CNBC. I kind of wish I had the clip right now. He actually literally talked about, in so many words, a revaluation of currency, leveling of the playing field. Now, let's just forget the hopium for a minute. Let's analyze why you have to have at some point. Now, do I think it's going to happen overnight? Personally, I don't think it can be. Some of it could be an instant thing, but I think like everything else, it has to be a rollout. But why do you need that? Well, somebody please logically explain to me why two industrialized nations. Well, perfect example. China is literally about to, well, they were literally about to overtake us in terms of GDP, trade, every kind of metric, right? They have more people. They're a larger area. They're manufacturing and making more people, more products and selling more than we are. Can you explain to me why the renminbi is worth, or the yuan is worth 3 cents on our dollar? Can somebody logically explain to me why the system works that way? Because it's not supposed to, right? If Dave and Rambo and Mark are all doing the same job in the same city for the same salary, living in the same house, like everything should be equal, right? Of course. So this whole system of, well, I go to Turkey and it's worth, the currency is this difference, or a country like Zimbabwe, which is literally, what is it, 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars to like a dollar. It's insane. Yet they have more minerals and gold and other resources in the ground than we ever could. So somebody please reconcile with me why the currency is so different. The point is, it's not supposed to be. So in order to get to a system where any of this stuff works, and by the way, Rambo, I think you know this, right? Literally every country in the world, every single one, is in the same position we are from a debt standpoint. So if Rambo, Dave, and Mark are all in debt, and we are the whole ecosystem of the world, meaning we got nowhere else to go to get money, how can we eliminate that debt if we have nowhere else to go? You have to level the playing field. So there's, we can keep going, but you're absolutely right. That is the problem with a lot of different things, man. With some of the technologies we want to come out, constitutional law, like you can't implement constitutional law. You can't wake up tomorrow and have the military stand up and say, by the way, throw your driver's license away. You can't do that. It's going to be a rollout over time. And going back to what we were saying before with Trump, that's what he's signaling. He's signaling that some of these things are going to roll out over time. But it's important to separate the things. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people have made people like you and me less likely to talk about many topics, Nasara or whatever, we should come up with a new name for it at this point, quite honestly. I wish somebody would, because it's been so propagandized and manipulated, and but there are if you just look at what it says, or what people theorize it says, and I know Mark would say the same, Mark could speak to the same thing. It's just look at it. Look at what it is and compare it to what all the people out there in Q world and Trump world are saying, and they pretty much align perfectly.
I mean, look, we've discussed this ad nauseum. Whether it's done by the black hats or the white hats, a global currency revaluation has to happen. The world is broke.
Yep.
All the countries in the world are bankrupt. They don't, you can't keep printing monopoly money and expect countries to thrive. You can't have, like you brought up, countries like Zimbabwe where the ZIM is, 100 trillion ZIM might buy them a loaf of bread. It's pathetic, especially considering what they have in the ground. But it's something that has to happen to restructure the global economy, to allow fair trade, to allow it to be equitable for the people of all of these countries, to have money to live, survive, and thrive. And that's not the way that it is now. But I think that the discussions that people have had on all the different platforms regarding the RV and regarding the SARA, et cetera, I think, and we've said it before, too many people have their head in the wrong place as far as this movement's concerned, and they're more focused on the money than anything else. And it's not going to be a panacea. They're not just going to, like you said before, dump $10 million in everybody's pocket and say, go for it, because you're going to have lottery winner syndrome, where people are going to have $10 million one day and a month later they're going to be broke again. And the countries are not. This is whatever bailout comes through Nasara, whatever debt forgiveness comes through Nasara, people are now going to have to learn to be fiscally responsible, because it's a one-shot deal, no matter how you look at it. Yeah.
Can I ask you? So what seems more realistic to me, right? And again, I'm going off of the basis that I just talked about before. What seems more realistic to me is that, well, first of all, Donald Trump is, again, not to repeat the conversation, but he is messaging that we're headed in a certain direction, right? No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax, or what was the other one? Tips, Social Security, and overtime. So if those three things are happening, and he's talking heavily about tariffs, and he's talking heavily about lowering taxes and regulations, so to bring back all these companies to the country, it seems to me that we're going to go through much more of a process than a switch flipping. Absolutely. And so within this process comes all of this manufacturing, lower prices on energy, lower prices on housing, all very real promises from Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been wrong about very little. As a matter of fact, if he's not been right yet, I would almost bet that it's going to happen here shortly, right? He's been that right? Trump's been right about everything. So what it seems to me is that we're going through a process where, look, the system is broken before. I mean, we went from being gold-backed to this debt-based system that we have now, this fiat dollar. And so it's a very real possibility that the system was literally designed to break. The debt-based system was designed to fail. Like it has to fail at some point, in which case we have to have a new system. But it just seems to me that what we're looking at here in front of us, though, however fast or slow it might be, will be a process much different than a lottery ticket where debt is just forgiven. Although I've seen some things, fifth generation warfare, narrative warfare, messaging or not, where some debt seems to already be being forgiven, like people's house notes, and that's weird. That's odd.
Well, Rambo, okay, so, and by the way, I'm glad we're having this conversation. I think it's important. I really do. And we didn't plan this.
We didn't plan this at all.
No. This is not the direction we were going to go in at all, but I'm glad we're talking about it.
Which you guys should all take as that this is an honest conversation. This is as honest as it gets. We did not plan this at all. Go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
No, so like the second Mark said debt forgiveness, and I'm glad he did. Let me premise it, but I'm thinking to myself, oh, here we go. Because of just what we're talking about. Now, do I believe that in the coming months, I don't know how long it's going to be, maybe a year, maybe, I don't know. There's going to be some level of debt forgiveness. Absolutely. How far it's going to go, I don't know. But I can explain to people why I believe there has to be. Well, go ahead.
But Dave, hold on. I want to ask you a question with that, because what I'm insinuating with a process is that energy costs go down as Trump promised. He said 50% in 12 months. He just said it yesterday. Mm-hmm. If he's talking about housing costs going down 50%, if we're bringing all this manufacturing to the country, the process that I'm talking about is not necessarily debt forgiveness, except for a more of what he's talking about, which is a renaissance or a jubilee of sorts, where we are valued where we should be rather than taxed into slavery, in which case the debt can be caught up on through natural means because we are working for and earning what we should have been the whole time.
Okay, but let me throw that back at you, Rambo. Remember, there's two sides to economics, right? Supply and demand. He's focusing on the supply side, right? We're going to make more factories. We're going to make more jobs. We're going to make all this stuff, right? I don't think most people, I know you do and Mark does, but I don't think the average person has really, and something I scream about all the time, has really wrapped their head around how, quite frankly, I'll say the word fucked we are financially as a country. Like, fucked. I'll say it twice. Sorry, I apologize. I know we don't like to do that, but it warrants that word. You have, we have all these people running around this country, many of whom where I used to live, that they literally think we live in the greatest place ever because they got their, they got their Rolex watch and their BMW that's got a 12-year loan on it and all these other things. And it's an absolute facade. Okay. 64% of this country does not have $1,000 in the bank. Like, okay, 60%. I believe it's 65% of households that make over $150,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck. Credit card debt is beyond the level of ever being able to be paid off. Mortgage debt, all of it. So if he's saying he's going to do all these things, that's great, So we're gonna fund the country through tariffs. And or he was just in Detroit, right? Okay, I'm gonna bring back all the car factories. Who the F is gonna buy the cars in the state we're in? Who's gonna buy? You can bring back all the manufacturing you want. Who's gonna buy the goods? We can't afford to buy the goods. You can cut housing in half. You could take the interest rate on credit cards down to 10%. You can do all these things. But between student loans and credit card debt and all these other things, it's mathematically. Look, if you tomorrow morning you said, look, everybody now has a job making $100,000 a year, you still can't dig out of the hole. You got the average person with it doesn't work. There has to be some other component that we don't know about. Now, I'm not saying everyone's debt is going to go to zero. I've never said that. That's not what I'm getting at. But could I see a situation where certain banks and the system is reset and certain loans and things could get reset or reduced? Yeah, because how else do you dig out of it? It's not enough to just bring back all those jobs that we lost. And that also takes time. And it's not enough just to reduce the cost of energy. We were in such and that's kind of the point. I think that's why they had to amplify the inflation and everything, because even if you went back to where we were in 29, by the way, Trump's saying it. Now I'm really going to trigger some people. Trump's saying that 2019 was the greatest economy we ever had. No, that's just mathematically, it's not true. we were screwed in 2019 too. It just wasn't. It's just the best it had been for a long period of time. You want the best economy we ever had, you got to go back before 1913. But there's no other way out of it. There is no other way out of it.
That's also the point, though. You have to look at where we came from to get to where we are now. Okay. Prior to 1913, and especially the period between 1913 and 1971, we were a booming economy in the sense that we had something to offer. We had people who were inventors, we had people who were manufacturing, and we had product to put out there. As we got farther and farther along into this ridiculous scenario, and we went off of an asset-backed standard, and then especially in 1971, went completely off an asset-backed standard, and got to the point of monopoly money, and got to the point of a lot of the manufacturers taking product out of this country to go to China or wherever else where manufacturing costs them nothing. All of these things added into the devaluation of our dollar, because without people working, earning a salary, buying American goods and products, paying taxes, which they weren't supposed to be doing to begin with, but all of that added in, that drops the value of your currency. That helps to cause the inflation. And it was just a cyclical thing. And now what do? We export ideas while we import product, and we pay for everything twice as much for things that we used to produce and put out here. These are the things that when you start to turn it around, especially if globally we go to asset-backed currency and set all the countries on an even keel, you've got a starting point for everybody to stay on that even keel. And you've got a starting point for all of these economies and all of their populations to actually thrive. And you could do away with a lot of the debt that's there because of the fact that you do have a piece of paper that means something.
I want to add something to that, the whole idea of this, what I think is absolutely intelligent, friendly debate over these ideas. Look, it's going to get better, right? Can we just agree on that? It's whatever's about to happen is absolutely, look, I believe Trump, and he started using a word here recently that I think is key to this debate, and that's reciprocity, right? So he just said it multiple times in these last few rallies that he talked about. And with reciprocity, I mean, just the basic definition is a social norm that involves the exchange of actions or privileges between two or more people or groups. I think we can all agree that we're victims of a global banking institution that is putting us all into debt slavery, right? I think what Donald Trump seems to be doing is taking that control back from that central banking system and making it America first. So that's why he even joked yesterday that we might use this reciprocity thing and these tariffs and bring all these businesses back to America. And he said, should we stop when it's neutral? He said, I really think maybe we should do it to them a little bit the way that they did it to us forever. And he said, that's kind of where my head's at right now. And everybody laughed and clapped. We don't want to beat up the world. However, we've been getting taken advantage of for so long that maybe it's our turn to reestablish ourselves where our forefathers intended. They all left those countries and came here for a reason. And it was because of the tyranny that's now being propagated against us in this very moment. So I don't know that I want to just beat up the rest of the world, but I think Donald Trump's got a damn good point. And I think that no matter what's going to happen, whether you name it Nassar Jassara or it's going to be a longer plan or whatever it might be, I believe that we're in for something very positive compared to what we've lived through up to this point. So if we could just, I want to change gears, and I want to say thank you to somebody real quick. So I want to give another example of this 5th generation warfare, but give me just 1 second, because Anti-AGV, obviously one of your guys, you guys know that name, said, love you guys and good morning. Dave and Mark, thank you for introducing your friend Joe Rambo. Much peace. Have a great weekend, with $147 Rumble rant. That is a huge deal. Thank you very, very much for your support. I always do this, and we talked about it pre-show, but I always forget to thank the sponsors of the show. So I'm going to just do 2 of them real quick, if you guys don't mind.
Of course.
So love this dude. Sponsors everybody, but as he should, we should all be supporting him. Over at Mike Lindell, mypillow.com. The products are amazing. You guys, I'm sure, have them. I know I got all of them. Christmas is coming up. If you want to support this show and also support Mike Lindell, please go over to mypillow.com and use promo code Rambo. And also this one, which this gentleman, him and his wife run 2 websites, epicminerals.com and tulipblooms.shop. Tulipblooms.shop. That's Patrick Gunnels. He was nice enough to come on the show the other day, and when he did and he explained his products, I'm pretty sure it was like 15 of you guys ran out and supported this cause. So the products on this website are absolutely amazing. The rainfall, I literally have some right here. This dude is absolutely awesome. The products are amazing. I highly suggest looking out for your ladies and going to check out tulipblooms.shop. You will not be disappointed in anything you find on here. The products are top of the line. Patrick is an absolute patriot, and it supports the show. So that's tulipblooms.shop. So we'll do the other 2 that are supporting the show closer to the end. But I wanted to get just a couple out of the way. If
Rambo, can I add one last thing to that? Your last point. I know you want to move on, but
yeah.
One quick question.
Please do.
I think so. We all agree the central banking system is at the heart of all this, right? I think what he's referring to, respectfully, I don't think he's talking about us elevating ourselves above other countries. I believe he's by taking advantage of other countries, because realistically, the way the system works, even in a new system, it's a zero-sum game, right? There has to be a winner and a loser. So for us to dominate, that would mean somebody else has to be losing. I think he's talking about the central bank. And just to put a little bow on the debt theory, and just to be clear, I'm not giving hopium. I'm just saying there has to be some restructuring component. So do you agree that the overwhelming majority, if not basically nearly 100% of the world's debt, rolls up to the central banks?
Without question.
Okay. And you also agree we're eliminating the central banks at some point if we win?
Yep.
So then where's the debt go? What are we paying off?
You're right. It's a great, very simple point that makes a whole lot of sense. And I think it's why so many people gravitate towards this whole thing. I find the financial system to be very complicated, like where it's well beyond my pay grade. So I enjoy having these conversations, but I think I just end up getting to the point where I'm like, much smarter people are involved in this than I am. I think it is important. I think the ultimate takeaway is that we have some hope here, that we are headed in a positive direction. So I just find comfort in that at this point. To be honest with you, I don't know what the right move is. I own a little bit of gold. I own a little bit more of silver, and I own a little bit of crypto, and I go to work every day, and I work really hard to try to make sure I feed my family. And that's kind of just, I hope that all debt's forgiven. Although I don't really have much. I don't personally. Our country does. We're enslaved through taxation. What I want is them to stop taxing me to the point where me and Kim got to go work 60, 70 hours a week. And I got to take the remaining 8 hours and take care of my kids for 4 and podcast for 4. I would sure love for that to not be the case. I would sure. Karl Marx said the greatest threat to communism was the destruction of the nuclear family. Well, what type of nuclear family can we have when we're all out working 60, 70 hours a week? Our kids are getting taken care of by the indoctrination camps, right? So I love the financial system talk, and it needs to change so that we can get all of everything that we value back. I'm with you. We fight for all of these small topics, and they will all be fixed given the financial system is corrected. So I understand why the topic's so important. I don't know.
No, the last thing I would say is listen to what Rambo just said, because where all this comes full circle to how it applies to our movement is no one should be living their lives as if any of this stuff is a guarantee. And that is where people get themselves into trouble. The people are sitting around waiting for something that none of us 100% know even close to what it's going to be. And that is why this can be such a toxic and controversial subject. In my personal opinion, it's because there are people out there that have spun it into something that has gotten people to change the way they live their lives financially and otherwise, because they are expecting something that none of us know. And as we talk about, the three of us, all the time with any of these things, whether it's current events or financial or elections or whatever, when we live our lives based on speculation and expectations, that's where we get ourselves into trouble. So you got to just go do what you can, do what's best for you financially, take in all the information. There's none of us on this screen or any screen can tell you what to do with your money. You have to do what's best for you, and please do it as if none of this stuff exists right now, because right now it doesn't.
Yep. Yeah, we're definitely headed in a positive direction. You can't convince me anything otherwise when it comes to that. I do want to address this comment. Look, I'm not a very biblical person, but there is one thing I know. It's not that money is the root of all evil, but it's the love of money that's the root of all evil.
That's right.
And the Bible actually says the love of money is the root of all evil. So there's a big difference. Money can be used for good. That is 100% true. I've see it happen still to this day, every day. I want to give another example, if you guys don't mind, to change gears on this. I want to give another example of fifth generation warfare. So, do you guys remember the mayor of New York talking about the migration, which we touched on early in this episode? And Donald Trump came out and said, give it 6 months to a year, that guy will be indicted. I believe that to be white hats in control of the narrative, because what we're now seeing in New York sure seems like some Q references to me. And are you tracking the resignations? Check this out. I want to hear what you guys think.
Time out of City Hall, First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright has resigned amid ongoing federal investigations. And we just learned another member of the Adams administration has been arrested. News 4's Tracy Strahan joins us live from Lower Manhattan with all the breaking news here. Tracy.
Well, Mohammed Bahi submitted his resignation just yesterday, and about 30 minutes ago, federal prosecutors announced that he is now under arrest. Before that, we learned about the resignation that appeared to be imminent of Sheena Wright. Wright was the first deputy mayor before this all happened. Just last month, the feds seized phones from the Harlem home that she shared with her now husband, Schools Chancellor David Banks, who had electronics seized as well, and will be resigning next week instead of at the end of the year that he originally announced. Sheena Wright's departure comes after her brother-in-law, Philip Banks, the deputy mayor of public safety, announced his resignation yesterday. He's one of the mayor's closest allies and longtime friends. He also had electronic devices seized last month. Questions continue to swirl as to whether or not his brother, Terrence Banks, who's a consultant, received any special treatment for his clients when it came to the awarding of city contracts.
He reached out to me and stated, Eric, I'm looking to move on, and this is a good time to do so.
Other departures included Winnie Greco, the mayor's director of Asian Affairs, whose home was previously raided by the feds. Mohammed Bahi resigned as well. He worked in the mayor's community affairs unit, and News 4 has learned that federal prosecutors announced his arrest, saying he's charged with witness tampering and destruction of records. Charging documents say this is all in connection with the ongoing Mayor Adams investigation to the 2021 campaign. There was also a termination that was announced in all of this. Rana Abasova had been on leave from her position as director of protocol in the mayor's Office of International Affairs. Prosecutors say she coordinated improper straw donations and luxury travel upgrades for the mayor and his campaign. It's believed she was cooperating with the Manhattan Federal Prosecutor's Office as a key witness into the mayor's indictment. Two sources familiar with the mayor's plans say Maria Torres Springer will be the replacement for Sheena Wright. All of this happening since we first arrived here, and it's clear that there may be more resignations or possibly terminations that are imminent as well. Live at City Hall this morning, Tracy Strahan, News 4 New York.
Now, before I hand it over, okay, I haven't yet figured out, first and foremost, if the guy that Donald Trump kind of like had his back because he talked about migration. He didn't resign or get charged with anything yet. So I haven't quite figured out if he's a plant that's helping take down this whole thing or if he's implicated. I haven't figured that out yet. However, do I think that this is all because he spoke out about the immigration problem on the southern border? Not for a damn second.
No.
Go ahead. Sorry. What do you guys think?
I mean, first of all, as I drool on myself on live television, sorry, it's early. I mean, look at that clip. That is there anything normal about this? No, absolutely not. Well, I tacked on to what you were all over this yesterday, and it immediately made me think of a Q drop. Shocker. Could you pop my screen up? 2803, February 18, 2019. Look for placeholder updates at Patriots Fight. Indictments, arrests, and declass will force worldwide coverage. Leaks, bribery, collusion. Isn't that exactly bribery and all that? Yep. Media will force resignations will follow up with criminal prosecution. So they literally told you. They told you there's going to be, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to read this, but placeholders in quotes, right? So look for placeholder updates. And then it's basically saying resignations will be followed up with criminal prosecution. I personally think that Adams, like many other people, look, not to get off topic, we can come back to this in a minute. Look at what they've been doing to Gretchen Whitmer lately. Have you seen some of the clips coming out? It's a cartoon show. But I always point back to this, right? And I apologize, it's a little blurry. But this is what's happening on Instagram right now. Right? And it's hilarious, but what I find brilliant, what always blows my mind about this operation is that there are always 2 or 3 or sometimes 5 different things going on within the same story. So like, yeah, on the surface, we're exposing a corrupt mayor. Beneath the surface, he's likely part of what's going on. And then the third layer is stuff like this. Now, this picture was taken in like September of 2023. And people say, well, they're all, of course they were. They're in on it together. Now, if we've been sitting here, some of us for 7 years, not me, but some of these Anons, and some of us for the last 3-4 years, knowing all this stuff is coming down the pike. The point I've always made, Eric Adams, as the mayor of New York City, probably gets the highest level of quote unquote intel of any mayor, of any person in the country that's not a governor. Like, do you guys really think like, well, we can see the 500,000 sealed indictments and he doesn't know? So the question is, if Rambo and I are running, we grab Mark and we're running this giant illegal ring that we're trying to hide, are the 3 of us could be podcasting together so everyone can screen cap it and do this? Or do the White Hats make him do this for exactly what's happening right now? That's 5th generation warfare. They staged this photo op a year ago so that people, when this stuff came out, which they also planned, could organically wake up and say, wait a second, look at this, and spread it around. Just like a lot of people outside of our world couldn't understand why we kept pointing out that Lady Gaga and Garth Brooks and J-Lo were at the inauguration. Well, gee, doesn't it make a lot of sense now? Because everyone's
Tom
taking
Hanks.
pictures. Yeah, everyone's taking pictures of them shaking hands with Biden and going, wait a second, J-Lo's rumored to be around Diddy, and we know what Lady Gaga is, and Garth Brooks just got rung up on a rape charge last week, and more will come out, and they're connecting the dots organically because of those pictures that the White Hat set up 4 friggin' years ago. That to me is what is brilliant about it, and why I think your point is spot on, that none of this is an accident.
Go ahead, Mark. You got something?
Well, all of these things are great reveals, and I think that they're all coming down at rapid pace, because you look at what's happening to a lot of these mayors. Well, focus on New York City. You look at the mayor, you look at the police commissioner, you look at all of the people who are in his cabinet or whatever, and how that's all falling apart. You look at what they're doing to Whitmer, you look at what they're doing to Kathy Hochul, you look at what they're doing all over the country with these people, and you look at, it's got nothing to do with politics, but you look at, well, I guess to a certain degree it does. You look at what the media just put out, and Dave and I had this discussion for quite a while over the past couple of days. The way they put out all the information about the greatest storm on earth, it's become a joke, and we were discussing the fact that possibly this is just to see how the media would relate it. And you look at the way that they related it, and you look at the information that was put out there, and you look at the information they're putting out there about these politicians and about these other public figures, sports figures, Hollywood, music, et cetera, and the agenda they're putting out there. And a friend of mine just texted me this morning about a huge shakeup at my old newsroom. Now you're talking again, number one station, number one market, and it's starting to come down to the local level. So all of these things are happening at once, and is it kind of a signal to, we're getting to the very end here, and they're trying to get it done prior to the election or whatever? Who knows? We don't know. We're not privy to that. But facts being what they are, all these things are being put out at like a Gatling gun pace. And they're doing it for a reason. And they're exposing all these people for a reason. And they're taking down all these different groups, political, entertainment, news, media, taking it all down at once. And you got to sit and say to yourself, why? Why? Again, going back to the hurricane, they sat there and they, some people saying, get out of Florida. Governor, mayor saying, if you stay here, you're going to die. This and that and the other. And it, the simple things that we brought up the other day, looking at the Weather Channel, their app, you look at their homepage that said, you're dead. And then you go to the hourly, and I don't think that those 15 to 20 mile an hour wind gusts were going to kill you. And then you go to the daily, where they give the precipitation rates and said 1 to 2 inches. I don't think that's going to kill you either. So all these narratives that they're putting out in all these directions all at once, even your most far to the left progressive person in the world has to look at it and say, huh? What's going on here? And it's got to make the people question and think, what's going on? There are too many, this is like the fall of the Roman Empire on steroids. Where are we going? Why is this happening? How is this happening? How is it happening so quickly? So people have got to start to think about those things.
Yeah, I want to go back to it. Look, first of all, Donald Trump predicted it. He said that guy was going to get indicted. He literally said it months prior. Now, he gave a slightly different reason. I believe that's fifth generation warfare, but he predicted it. And just an exclamation point on the whole thing. Has there ever been a potential presidential candidate that had a rally at Madison Square Garden that was a Republican? Has there ever even been a rally at Madison Square Garden?
Maybe Nixon.
The RNC. Oh no, the RNC was at the Javits. So no, I don't think anybody ever had one at the Garden.
Donald Trump announces over the weekend that he's having a rally at Madison Square Garden 9 days before the election.
It was Nixon. Nixon and Wallace were the last time, which also is the last time that there was a presidential rally on Long Island at Nassau Coliseum. So it's interesting. It's paralleling Nixon. That's kind of might be a whole other rabbit hole, but yeah.
Yeah. it's for me, New York City is captured. That is a captured city, right? Most people believe that is a completely captured city. We're now watching it. Was there 17 resignations right there that we just watched?
And by the way, Rambo, do you remember the last time a mayor was indicted? It just happened to be 170 years ago. Exactly. And
what is going on? I feel like we live in a simulation. We have to live in a simulation.
Here, let me. Can you give me the screen for just to show everybody I'm not making that up, because it's not just that it was 170 years ago. It's that they put it in once again. They always put it in the news. It's right here. All right. The indictment marks the first time a New York City mayor has faced charges in 170 years.
This is why I don't understand when I talk to really smart people. Look, can we pretend nobody's listening for a second? We talk to really smart people sometimes, people that are the tip of the spear when it comes to citizen journalism and digging. And when I bring up these conversations about media being controlled, I get, respectfully laughed out of the room. I can't see it any other way at this point. There's no way they are messaging all of these things this way without it. We are headed in a direction literally navigated by the information being shown to us. How can anyone perceive that any other way than the good guys are controlling the information space? I realize some of it plays with your emotions, but that's what they're doing intentionally.
Rambo, I'm at a loss for words when people question that, because to be honest, if you understand the basis of how the information flow has worked in this nation for let's say just for the last 20 something years, just since the internet era, out of everything that's happening, and I mean underground tunnels and trafficking and the border and all the that's the easiest piece of all. There's 6 companies that control it all. I don't understand it, because number one, like I said, just logically, it's for the type of power that our military has, it's super easy to do. By the way, it's also super legal to do under war powers. Look that up too. It's number 3. It's been done before. World War I, World War II. We took over all the radio stations, televisions. We told them what to say. So there's precedence for it. And then you put the cherry on top, which is all these ridiculous. How many times can they stick 17? How many times can they change numbers? They literally change dates. They change numbers. Like if you go back and look at that, I'm almost positive, I could be wrong here, but I'm almost positive that this is one example where it's actually not 170 years. It's like 174 or something like that. Or Trump takes something that was, he takes the Spanish flu of 1918 and he keeps saying 1917 and they over and over and over. Oh my God, they passed this giant omnibus spending bill, $1.7 trillion. I mean, the Boeing incident, the door blew out and there just happened to be 170 people on board and they grounded 170 planes, like over and over and over and over. I don't get it, other than to think that I don't know, and except other than that, maybe there are some people that are just so deep into their digs. Like there are some people that dig very hard, and we need them. They dig very hard on like the federal continuity directives and all that kind of stuff. That maybe they just spend so much time in that world that they don't see whereas like you, me, Mark, people like us spend a lot more time looking at the public narrative and analyzing that. Maybe that's why. I mean, dude, did you see the black swan going through the Weather Channel the other day? It's the most.
It was awesome. It was
I have that clip if you want to show it, but I mean, but then you also, it's not just the black swan going through. That's funny. It's hilarious. But then like Mark is the one that was been pointing to like the Weather Channel and how they report and that they're at the center of everything. So then logically you say to yourself, well, that might seem crazy. But first of all, then you also look up like right on Wikipedia, like, are there black swans in Florida? Like, it's extremely rare. There's like 5 of them. I don't know. I'm making that part up, but it says they're extremely rare, right? But logically, you would say, well, wait a second. The Weather Channel powers all the weather, most of the basic weather apps on your phone, your iPad. You go to the airport, the clocks on billboards. That's all the Weather Channel. That's part of those like 6 companies. So if you're doing a weather media exposure app, wouldn't they be at the center of it? I mean, we've seen them throw the Grim Reaper through the coronation before. Walked right by the back door.
It's
right?
a softball. It's a complete softball to talk about the storm.
Yeah, it's just so like it can sound crazy to people, but it's like you've seen them do it over and over. I mean, how many times can they put the guys with the wrong uniforms, next to Air Force One and have Joey, sitting on a short desk and going out the ass end of it, all these things. So why would you think it's crazy that somebody in Fort Pog or wherever else, and lots of people are like, that doesn't even look real, the whole thing. Why would you think it's crazy for them to stick a black swan in there when General Flynn and all these other people have been speaking about black swan events for all this time? It's not, when you deconstruct it, I don't think there's anything crazy about it. But Rambo, I don't know. I guess maybe there's just some people that are so focused on their side of what they're doing, like finance people, the finance guys that are in this, the real ones. I mean, I don't think they're seeing the 17s and the comms the way we do. I don't know, man. To me, it's so obvious.
But focused on themselves and focused on their own agenda, et cetera, et cetera. Go back to what you've said a billion times also in regard to, how long ago was it that when people would refer to an incident, a couple of hundred or 1,000 or this or that, why 17 and variations thereof all of a sudden? Okay. What narrative changed in the world that all of a sudden, instead of, like even with the mayoral thing, 170 years ago, it would have been nearly 2 centuries ago. Would have been the article even a couple of years ago, but now it's a variation of 17. Everything is it's got to make people think to a certain extent. It really does. There you go. It's got to make people think. Why all of a sudden? And it ain't a tinfoil hat. It's just not.
All right. I got 2 more things I want to show before we get out of here today. So this clip's 4 minutes long, but after I dug on that New York thing, I started just putting in federal investigations and large cities throughout the country because I wanted to see if something wasn't hitting the mainstream media's top headline list, but was still going on beneath the surface. And I found this one story that I find very intriguing, and I think you guys will too. I'll just tell you what's happening is in LA, the people that are trying to fight crime are bypassing the DA completely and going to the feds. Check this clip out. It's 4 minutes long. I'm going to use it as a restroom break here, and then I got one more thing before we get out of here. So I'm going to put it on full screen. But check this out. This will blow your mind that it's not a talking point around the country.
Few years, it appears more criminal cases investigated by local police are being prosecuted in federal rather than local criminal courts. Everything from drugs and gangs to murder. Our investigative reporter Eric Leonard wanted to find out why this is happening.
This one here was by Jax's art teacher.
The walkway in front of Matt Markley's home in Santa Clarita is filled with rocks painted by friends and family in remembrance of 18-year-old Jax Markley, who died 2 years ago from an accidental fentanyl overdose alone in their bedroom.
I don't want anyone else to have to go through this, whatever it takes. And in this particular case, we're here to talk about how the LA District Attorney's Office failed us.
Jax's father, Matt, says he learned from detectives the dealer who began supplying Jax, possibly at age 16 or 17, with counterfeit oxy pills, knew about the dangers of a fatal overdose and continued selling them. LA County Sheriff's deputies arrested the suspected dealer in Santa Clarita. And Markley says even though prosecutors and their supervisors at the LA County DA's office who reviewed the evidence told him they saw enough to bring a second-degree murder charge, this internal memo obtained by the I-Team shows Chief Deputy District Attorney Sharon Wu handwrote an order to file a lesser charge of involuntary manslaughter, which would carry far less jail time with a conviction.
I was a little flabbergasted because we hold drunk drivers responsible. Why are we not holding this addict accountable for killing other people?
Inside the DA's office, the prosecutors who handled the case say they didn't get an explanation either. Narcotics Division Head Deputy Brian Shern, speaking publicly for the first time representing his own views, not those of the DA's office, says he believes it should have been a second-degree murder charge.
We all thought it was an incredibly strong case.
He says after the family and detectives unsuccessfully tried to have the charge reconsidered, the case was brought to the U.S. Attorney's Office, where the accused dealer was indicted on a charge of distributing fentanyl, resulting in death.
They pled guilty almost right away because it was such a strong and compelling case.
And Shern says after the Markley case, the local fentanyl overdose task force now goes directly to the feds.
They no longer had confidence after meeting with upper management, and they have not brought any more cases to the district attorney's office.
And there are indications more than just overdose death cases are being routed to federal prosecutors. Last March, U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada announced with Southern California Police an effort to route more local gun arrests to his office.
What we're doing here is expanding the number of cases that we bring federally.
Cases that would traditionally be presented to the district attorney, where Gascon's policies have limited the use of gun enhancements that increase penalties. And Estrada's office also brought charges in the 2022 murder of off-duty LAPD officer Fernando Arroyos, a type of case that almost always went to the DA. Brian Shern says it's not a coincidence. He says it's because the DA's office under Gascon has implemented blanket rules that prevent the use of certain charges and enhancements, even when evidence shows they're appropriate, and local law enforcement and victims' families are going elsewhere.
The reason I'd agreed to come on camera, despite the fact that I'm very nervous, is because for 30 years, I've asked victims and witnesses to come to court and have the courage to be honest and truthful. And who am I as a prosecutor when I know awful things are happening that I don't have the courage to do this?
The DA's office told us today it is committed to prosecuting people who illegally distribute fentanyl and recognizes that sometimes these cases are somewhat easier to prosecute under federal laws. Gascon's office has filed 3 fentanyl death prosecutions in recent months and says the facts of each of these cases are unique, so it's difficult to compare them. Matt Markley there says he's hoping California adopts a new law that would empower prosecutors to bring more effective charges against suppliers in accidental fentanyl overdoses. By the way, the woman who pleaded guilty to supplying the fentanyl to Jax is scheduled to be sentenced in December and could face more than a decade in prison. Live in the newsroom, I'm investigative reporter Eric Leonard, NBC4 News. Back to you.
Am I crazy? Or are we completely bypassing the cities that are trying to defund the police? And look, we're giving the power back to the people unless you are completely taken over by communists, in which case we're going to step in and prosecute them anyway.
So you got to figure what a step forward that is, considering that's LA County,
right,
in California. You know.
Well, Donald Trump. Yeah, I'll pull it. Yeah, leave this up. Remember, Donald Trump has been messaging for, I don't know, 2 years now, that and I'm paraphrasing, that we're going to step in those Democrat cities, whether they like it or not, right? He said that. And this is why this stuff is fun. This is a reminder to everybody why we all preach like unity and working together, because there's simply too much information going out for everyone to catch it at the same time. And what Rambo caught yesterday directly connects to, in my opinion, maybe directly connects. We'll just speculate. John Harold did a great job staying on top of this, and he writes, we have a new Department of Defense directive for DoD intelligence-related activities. Much of the directive has to do with the support of domestic civil law enforcement authorities, which is the Posse Comitatus Act, right? And for those that don't know, the Posse Comitatus Act is what prevents, in times of peace, the military from prosecuting civilians, right? And so if you're theorizing what's kind of we think is going on behind the scenes, and the military would be doing indictments, and there's a Q drop that talks about the military tribunals being used to dispose of the sealed indictments, meaning to go through them. And then you see something like this come out, and he goes on to talk about, if for anybody that wants to read, what Posse Comitatus is, right? And that would obviously have to be suspended in an operation like this in order for the military to have any involvement. And then you tack on the fact that this is messaging, in my opinion. You got Eric Trump posting this around the same time. Eric Trump being deputized as a sheriff. Now, this actually happened a while ago, apparently. This was a little while ago, but he reposted it yesterday. And you also, if you look closely in that story, when they were showing, the B-roll during that, see, Mark, you like that? I remember what B-roll is? You like that? I learned that from you.
You catch it.
When they were showing the B-roll on that, they were all, this could be a coincidence too, but they were focusing on the sheriff cars in that. So no, Rambo, I think you're right over the target. This is exactly what would have to happen. And I think it's just the difference between what some people are saying, that, one day military is going to come in and they're going to be all over the streets everywhere, in every town, over the country. And that narrative versus what you're pointing out, which is between New York and Eric Adams and that whole thing and this. And also you could throw in all the stories we've gotten about human trafficking operations, especially over the last year. And if you read into those, who's involved? U.S. Marshals. Interesting. Homeland Security. Interesting. In conjunction with who? Look at like the Orlando sting where Disney people went down, and there was one in Vegas, there was one in LA. What was it? It was Homeland Security, which we could do a whole separate dig on what that really means, and U.S. Marshals working in conjunction with local police, which, this is speculation, would kind of lead you towards a military operation being masked as these agencies working with local police because they don't have a choice. And that story you just showed is, to me, kind of just proof positive in that direction.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I love hanging out with you because I can literally lay up these softballs and you knock them out of the park every time. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I do have one more segment I want to do, but if I can say thank you to the last two sponsors quick, I would love to do that as well before we get to our last topic here today. So first and foremost, I don't know if you guys have seen David Becker yet or not, but this dude is first of all, he considers himself a badlander. The dude is become a very good friend. Another person that I text. Typically, we're on opposite schedules, so I wake up to his texts because they're at 3 a.m. But this dude is 100% vested in this movement, right? He's good friends with Stormy Patriot Joe, Absolute 1776, myself, everybody at Badlands. You guys will meet him at GART. But what he does is Mid-Atlantic Business Alliance. So he's an insurance guy. So he's out here trying to get anybody that needs insurance. He's been doing it for 45 years. There is a long form commercial, short form interview that's on my page. I think it's maybe like 4 back or so. I still have yet to pin it, but I would like to pin it to the account if I can get to it today. If you guys are interested after I do this read, please go check that out. If you want to know a little bit more about him before you make the phone call, But David Becker is awesome. So here's the read. Mid-Atlantic Business Alliance. Are you paying too much for your health insurance? Fall is the time of year when insurance companies send out their annual renewals and rate increases. For many, the high cost of medical insurance is about to get even worse. David Becker and his son Jesse of Mid-Atlantic Business Alliance are here to help you get the best possible PPO insurance coverage at affordable rates. If you think the cost of groceries have exploded, you should see what the hospitals are charging these days. Without the proper PPO protection, you could be liable for tens of thousands of dollars in the event of surgery or hospital stay. Since 1990, Mid-Atlantic Business Alliance has helped individual and small businesses get access to nationwide PPOs, which cover both in-network and out-of-network charges in every state. Having a great nationwide network like Cigna will help your costs down to a minimum. If you're stuck paying for your own medical insurance, call David for a free quote at 609-577-8557 or visit www.midatlanticba.com. Love that dude. And last but certainly not least, Kofefi.coffee, rather. If you want to support a bunch of your favorite Anons and Patriots alike, you can go to Kofefi.coffee and you will see all these amazing faces, one of which will be on the show here in just 2 more hours at 3 o'clock. Midnight Rider herself, Carly Bonet, will be here. Part of what I want to talk about next with her coming on. But you'll see all these amazing names. And of course, at the bottom here, you will see the one, the only Rambo himself. So yeah, Kofefi.coffee.com. Highly suggest going to support the brand is awesome. The coffee's awesome. There's tons of different options and it supports all the people in this movement. So thank you for letting me do that. And of course, let me say it one more time because you guys are killing it over here. We're up over 400 on the thumbs on Rumble. Keep that thing going. If you're enjoying the show, please hit the positive affirmation button on whatever platform you are on. Boom. I'm starting to get good at that.
You timed that. You timed that very well.
Yeah.
The timing of that read was really good, man.
I wanted to tell you guys. So, you know what? Let me play this clip first. So, you guys started to talk about the storms, right? There's been much reference of like, which storm are we talking about? Are we talking about the hurricane or are we talking about the storm? So in this clip, I believe that's referenced. I know some people thought maybe white hats were controlling the storms. I don't buy it, right? I think you guys believe that as well. Do I believe the narrative surrounding these storms was controlled by the good guys? 100% I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to give an example of that here, and you guys will understand why I'm bringing this up now if you tune in 2 hours when Carly comes, because we also have a surprise guest who's coming on. So here's the clip.
All right. As Florida is bracing for Hurricane Milton, multiple states, they are still trying to recover from Hurricane Helene. The deadly storm absolutely devastating mountain communities in western North Carolina, especially historic flooding. I mean, entire towns have been wiped out. Our very own Sarah Carter has been there numerous times now on the ground in North Carolina in these areas that have been so hard hit and affected. And she joins us tonight with 5 local residents who have had their lives upended by Hurricane Helene. Sarah, you can introduce everybody, and I just really have one question. I want them to respond to the president saying every need has been met, everybody is happy, and are they happy with Joe and Kamala's response to the hurricane?
I want to stop this for 1 second. Did you guys see the show that I did with Feisty Cat about FEMA? You're muted, Dave.
Oh, yes.
Right. Okay. So
very important.
If anybody out there has not yet seen the episode that we just did with Feisty Cat about FEMA, I highly suggest going back to watch it. It will give you a whole new perspective on the way that you're watching what I believe to be 5th generation warfare. Okay, let's continue.
What do the states in the storm zone need, Mr. President?
Sorry?
What do the states in the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about.
You'll find out.
What storm, Mr. Resident? You'll find out. It's so funny. It doesn't get more obvious than that. All right, let's go.
They're getting everything they need. And they're very happy across the board.
Sean, I got to tell you, I'm here in Swananoa. You can see the devastation behind me. I just heard what President Biden said, and I can tell you this. I'm not going to tell you in my own words. I'm going to let them tell you for themselves the response from the federal government. But we had an opportunity today. We actually flew over Chimney Rock, Lake Lure, completely devastated. I don't even know if there's a word to describe what I witnessed. It's nothing short of tragic. People lost their lives. Their homes went down the river. It was actually so devastating that there was a geological shift in the river. So where the river had actually been at one point, it actually shifted to another area within the community. So an entire golf course was gone, a mini golf. Restaurants toppled over. The streets were covered with debris. But there was one thing that was certain, and one thing that I saw. It was residents. It was firefighters. It was law enforcement. It was the sheriffs. It was people coming out helping one another. And here's some of those people right here. They came with us because they want the American people, Sean, to know the truth. I've got Newland Mayor here. It's Derek Roberts. I've got the coroner from Avery County who is with me, John Millen. Oh, I've got David Calder, real estate executive who lost his business, your home. And I'll go back to you. I was able to see your business from the helicopter. It was completely demolished and sitting in the river. And Jimmy Sizemore, my gosh, you lost your entire home. It came right off the cliff, Sean. His entire home, his life's investment. It was out of the flood zone, came right off the cliff. I want to start first right here with Derek, Mayor Roberts. Talk a little bit about how you and your family experienced that night when Hurricane Helene came in. I know you were with your daughter, you were with your children. What happened?
Yeah, So I'm not going to play the whole clip. It's a little long. We're only about halfway through, but this is the mayor of that town. Now, I was called personally right before this show to look for this clip, this one and another one where this gentleman was on with Hannity. Now, the very one and only, my very good friend Pepe Deluxe is out taking care of what FEMA is not able to take care of. He goes into telling a story how his daughter lost her home as well, and she applied for help through FEMA, and she was only approved for not even the $750 that was promised, but only got $300 for personal things. FEMA is classifying everything as a mudslide, in which case it's natural and they're not helping. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense unless you watch the episode with Feisty and you believe that FEMA, a couple other agencies along with FEMA are already in the process of being dismantled. And these storms, the narrative surrounding them is being controlled by the white hats to expose the agencies that are already being dismantled. It's kind of mind-blowing. So do you guys have thoughts on that first before I tell you why I showed that at the end of the show here?
Mark, you want to go first?
Everything we've heard, and we were discussing it just the other day, that FEMA is kind of no longer in existence. And the whole narrative, you're talking about Pepe Deluxe being up there and doing what he's doing. And we just dealt with Louis Herms also being up there and contributing all kinds of stuff to help these people get back on their feet, helping with cleanup, helping with tear downs and bringing food, water, et cetera, the needs that they need. This is what the government's supposed to be there for. And we had this discussion the other day about the fact that, they're giving them 750, and now you're talking about them not even giving that. And yet it's, in the same token, they publicly go out and say this sent 157 million to the Lebanese people to help them out. Yep. It's these narratives that are becoming public. And when you've got something like that, and when you look at it in the sense, of the fact that this is an area that's over 2,000 feet above sea level. And it's a couple of 100 miles inland. What hurricanes in the past do you know that have gone that far inland and that high up and caused that kind of devastation? So there are a lot of factors feeding into this, and none of them add up to anything good.
Go ahead, Dave. What do you
got? The last week or so hasn't necessarily been fun to do the job that we do, because unfortunately, sometimes dissecting reality versus what's going on triggers a lot of people, and that's unfortunate. But we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't talk about this stuff. Listen, I thought I'll reiterate it because I posted it as well. I took a screen cap and linked it and posted it in our Telegram channel, because I think that podcast you did, I think it was whenever it was, Friday, with Feisty Cat, was critically important to understand. And logically, it would make sense too, right? If you're going to devolve the government and do everything that we think is happening, you are certainly not going to let a corrupt organization like FEMA still run around and actually, on any kind of large scale, do all the nefarious things that they have been, right? It's patently obvious to me that this entire thing. Now, let's just, when I say this, I mean, put aside for a minute who did the storm, who didn't do the storm. The storm happened. But if you just follow the narrative, which is what we all do here, it got the entire country, maybe not the entire country, people en masse talking about weather manipulation, right? So the storm happens, you have all these people, and I don't mean anons, I mean just people that study weather, right? People that are weather truthers, let's say, pointing out all these anomalies and saying that it's weather manipulation. And once again, it's going to follow the same script that we keep seeing. Little thing that starts online that's a conspiracy theory that's based on an event we saw, gets amplified in social media, doesn't get squashed the way it used to, it gets amplified. Then you have operatives like MTG, with millions of people seeing her talking about it, and General Flynn coming and amplifying that. And then you have, of all people, Biden during a national address yesterday about the current hurricane, telling the whole world how insane it is that Marjorie Taylor Greene literally thinks that the government is controlling the weather. I mean, that is messaging to the nth degree, all by design. And I do apologize that it bothers some people, but the reality of the situation, I used this analogy the other night, Rambo, you have a child. If you're in the car with your kid and they're of, let's say, teenage years, and you happen to drive by what's left of a car accident that killed 2 people in drunk driving, are you going to put your hand over her eyes, or are you going to say, look at that accident? That's what could happen to you if you drive drunk. And it's the same analogy here. Like I keep saying, real events control narrative. Real events control narrative. So this event happened, and I if people are upset that we're saying they're using this to wake up the masses, then they just frankly haven't been paying attention to what's been going on for the last 3 to 7 years, depending on when you came into this. And one last thing I want to point out, Rambo, that's been jumping out at me the whole time. And again, like Mark said, we were with Lewis. We certainly know all the stuff in North Carolina is real. Absolutely. But I personally have been watching a lot of footage from the northern interior kind of panhandle of Florida. One in particular, it's a community on the, I'm going to butcher the name of it. That's something river, the Saskatchewan. I'm butchering the name, but it's kind of irrelevant. And it's a YouTuber I watch, some outdoor channel. And the guy was just there, like did an hour-long special on it, all right? You're talking about a community of 85 homes, Rambo. 85 homes that were all on stilts, 12 feet up. All 85 are gone. I don't mean gone like there's rubble. I mean gone, like there is nothing left. So my question with this kind of stuff too is you got to wonder why, just kind of like the border, you got a 3,000-mile border. why do we focus on one area? And again, the stuff in North Carolina is real, but you always just have to ask questions like, why do they keep everything is coming from one area when there's a lot of other areas? And quite honestly, some that if you're in media and you love good dramatic footage, go send a drone over that neighborhood. But why aren't we getting that? So the whole thing just screams. And I just saw a clip Patriots in Control posted on X of just now. I think it was Jim Acosta with lovely Bill Nye, the science guy, on CNN telling the world how crazy it is that the government controls the weather. So if it's so crazy, why is the president talking about it? And why is CNN? And people have to get it out of their heads, but they're talking negatively. It doesn't matter how they're talking about it. It's predictive programming that forces a national conversation. And at the very least, I could tell you there's a national conversation about FEMA and a national conversation about weather control. Both have been an issue in this country for a long time. Neither was discussed before recently. And if it's being discussed, who's making us discuss it? The answer should be obvious.
I completely agree. And you know what? I'm going to end up playing this again. I don't know how many millions of times I've played this, but hold on. I'm trying to send it to my pre-show real quick. So every once in a while, you know, I don't believe in coincidences, right? Most people in this movement don't. But sometimes it seems like only God is the one that could have painted the picture. So I have Carly coming on today, right? And Carly was literally just retruthed by Donald Trump. And then I get a phone call from Pepe Deluxe, and he's going to surprise us today and pop on the show about halfway through and let us know what he's doing, because that governor needed some things, generators and some other things. And Pepe Deluxe put a Give, Send, Go out into the community, and people supported it. And so he's now out there, boots on the ground, delivering. And look who was literally back to back. Carly and Pepe Deluxe were retruthed by Donald Trump.
What?
Bro, I'm not even kidding. And so it's like a God moment for me, because I'm like, Carly's already coming on. Pepe calls me right before this show and says, this is what's going on. Can you find this clip for me? And I want you to post it and let everybody know. I said, I'll do you one better. Why don't you stop in the show halfway through? You and Carly were just retruthed by Donald Trump. It went, Pepe was retruthed with that. And then Carly was literally next. Both retruthed by Donald Trump himself. So that.
All right.
Florida is. Big shout out to Rev DQ. That's Pepe. I don't know if you know Pepe Deluxe, but
yeah, you thank you for connecting me with him, actually. And in fact, we're going to be having him on. I think we're trying to do something, squeeze something in next week before we go down to North Carolina for the tour. Great guy. Yes. And what a series of events right there, man. That's
it's crazy, right?
I don't know. How do you explain that?
I have no idea. Donald Trump literally retruthed both of them. Carly was already scheduled to come on here. Pepe calls me completely naturally, had nothing to do with it. Didn't even know I was doing 2 shows today, let alone having Carly. And I'm like, oh, bro, he knows him and Carly are friends, right? He loves Carly. So she doesn't even know that he's going to surprise us halfway through, unless she's watching this, which I'm sure she's not, because she's got 7 different news channels on right now, clipping all of them at the same exact time. Right? She's a savage. But I'll tell you what, I was going to end it there, but I would rather bring it back up a notch, right? Leave it on more of a positive note, because the hurricanes are a little tough to deal with, especially, look, I think that I can take a step back and look at it from like a 40,000 foot view, especially the thing I was pulling up is the Ghost in the Machine video. If you look at it and you watch that video, it shows the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. It shows all types of, the Chinese marching in military, et cetera, et cetera. And it basically talks about that we are everywhere. Anything we touch is a weapon. So do I think there's very real, very somber events that are happening? Yes. Do I believe that white hats are in control of the narrative surrounding them? Absolutely, 100%. So it's not always easy to take in. So it reminded me while you were talking, Dave, I wanted to bring this up because I haven't done a show on it yet. I don't know if you guys touched on this, but do you remember what just happened in coordination with me and Stormy Patriot Joe with the April Fool's Day thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The chart.
So I'm I'm gonna present this, and then I want to get your guys' thoughts before we bounce. So everybody was talking about this, right? Everybody was talking about this. And the main thing to take from this, right? So this is the chart that saved Donald Trump's life. He kisses it before bed, he sleeps with it, and he shows it at every rally at this point, right? Well, the thing that everybody picked up on was this arrow where it says Trump leaves office. Make this make sense, because what it's pointing to is March, April, right between March and April of 2020. So what I thought, what happened in my head, of course, because I'm the Donald Trump clip guy, I watch everything he says and I clip out the stuff that's funny. Well, Donald Trump has said, April Fool's Day, like,
calamity and
I don't know, maybe at least 17 or 170 times. So I just pulled one real quick to put with it. Like, why is it pointing at April Fool's Day 2020? Right. So I played this, or I put this with
calamity and disaster that Joe Biden has created and bring safety, prosperity, and prestige back to America. And I will say, we're going to put America first, as I did just 2.5 years ago. America was first. And there's never been a period of time like it. Every day for the United States, though, is April Fool's Day. This just occurred to me yesterday.
Whoa!
Because I see what's happening. I say, what's going on? What's happening? What's wrong? It's like April Fools, right?
Okay. That's weird. And I will tell you, that's not even close to the only time he said it. He says April Fool's Day. He says that the world thinks I'm playing a trick on them. April Fools, April Fools, April Fools. He said it many, many times. Well, Stormy Patriot Joe and his team, Absolute, and all of the amazing people, Rev and the other people that work with them, picked up on my post. And so they started digging. And they went back into Donald Trump's old tweets. Here, I'll play Stormy Patriot Joe's clip. You guys are not going to believe this. So what I want you to think about when you're watching this is the potential correlation between the Q drops and the devolution theory. Okay. So if the government was devolved at a certain point, when did it possibly happen? Think that while we watch this clip.
We found a pretty damn interesting tie-in to Donald Trump trolling about April Fool's Day, this famous chart, and some more additional information that kind of confirms the first things that Rambo is going to show you here. We found some things on the back end. So what Rambo's talking about is this famous chart, okay? And we've all seen the chart that says, you know, Trump left office and is pointing to sometime in April there, okay? But what Rambo's pointing out is, and Donald Trump has been saying it time and time again, is, hey, every day is like April Fool's Day. So let's play that for a quick sec.
This calamity and disaster that Joe, and there's never been a period of time like it. Every day for the United States, though, is April Fool's Day. This just occurred to me yesterday.
All right, so he keeps saying that over and over and over this past 4 years. Every day is like April Fool's Day. Okay, so now that when the chart came out and we got this time period that he's supposedly left office at the lowest point, okay, it lines up with April Fool's Day. And Rambo's take is, so let me get this straight. Trump's favorite chart, the one that saved his life, says he left office in April Fool's Day 2020. And it's odd that he keeps saying April Fool's to go on and on and time again. Okay. Now, Shannon took a look at his tweets back in the day. And what do we have here? Okay. So I'm going to give you a little background on it if I can. So this was a quote unquote COVID task force. Okay. That had, and this is on April 1st, 2020. And he had Pence there. He had Esper. He had Bill Barr. He had National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien and others. General Milley. Okay. Does this sound like people getting together to talk about COVID? You know, they start spinning it off. It's about drugs or something. But I really kind of get a feeling this was a much, much deeper tell, if you will. So let's listen to what they said in this conference.
And thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. And I want to publicly thank Admiral Craig Fowler, the commander of U.S. Southern Command out of Miami, for leading this operation, which is underway effective today.
Operation.
And also Admiral Gilday,
What?
The Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Schultz, for their contributions to this from their services. There's thousands of sailors, Coast Guardsmen, soldiers, airmen, Marines involved in this operation. We came upon some intelligence some time ago that the drug cartels, as a result of COVID-19, we're going to try to take advantage of the situation and try to infiltrate additional drugs into our country. As we know, there's 70,000 Americans die on an average annual basis to drugs. That's unacceptable. We're at war with COVID-19, we're at war with terrorists, and we are at war with the drug cartels as well. This is the United States military. You will not penetrate this country. You will not get past Jump Street. You're not going to come in here and kill additional Americans.
Whoa.
We will marshal whatever assets are required to prevent your entry into this country to kill Americans. So right now, the Navy has marshaled additional Gray Hull ships for PACOM and UCOM and for the Naval Fleet at Norfolk. And they are set sail already, and they are in the Caribbean right now. In addition to that, there's 10 Coast Guard cutters, and there's Special Operations Forces and Security Force Assistance Brigades, along with Air Force reconnaissance aircraft. The bottom line is you're not going to get through. Now is not the time to try to penetrate the United States with illegal drugs to kill America. With the United States military, we will defend our country regardless of the cost. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Secretary.
Okay, did that sound anything like a COVID presser, or did that sound like a much, 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 much bigger operation looking back on how everything lines up with the take? Okay, so you got Trump consistently saying every day is like April Fool's Day. We got his favorite chart pointing to this day in April that he's claiming is the lowest point of immigration, illegal immigration when he left office. And then you have this presser that he lines up all those people I talked about on April Fool's 2020. Wow. Did we just prove a handoff to devolution? Maybe.
Holy crap.
Dude. I was on the Long Island Railroad taking the train back from the airport when I watched this, and I literally said something, and like the whole train started looking at me because that I was like, wow. What is that? Right? This is why it's amazing to go back and look at this stuff. And I realized I made a note to myself to check the thread. I didn't, and again, I forgot because I was on the train. I don't know. Did you guys add this? Do you know what happened just 3 days before that? Called up the military to active duty. That executive order was March 27th, dude.
Donald Trump is literally prostituting that chart that says he left office on April 1st, 2020. And then all of this.
Yep. The more so we've all been speculating for a long time about something that we probably realistically can't know now, and I don't know, might not know for a long time, if ever, like when they actually implemented devolution or signed the Insurrection Act, if that's how they did it, which we don't even know which avenue, because quite frankly, there's multiple. The federal continuity directives were re-released on January 17th of 2017. That's an interesting date right there. But we don't know. But this, when you start to put this chain together, I mean, one way or another, look at this chain of events. Calls up the military. It stands there under the guise of COVID and basically declares a national emergency and remember he said we're at war. I believe it was March 27th or right around that day. He literally stood in the Situation Room and said, we are at war. It's a different kind of war. We're at war. So, legally how it all plays out, was he actually declaring the war right there? Well, he's certainly, you can't call up all of these people unless we're at war and you're
Not
using
only
war
that,
powers, right?
When that guy just said, when he said, when he started talking very authoritatively, he sounded like he was saying that the military is in charge. That's what I heard. Maybe it's because it's what I'm looking for, but that's surely what it sounded like. Donald Trump also, in that same speech you were referencing, told us that we will no longer announce future military operations. We will not announce troops on the ground or numbers or any of that stuff because it's stupid, right? Paraphrasing, but he basically said that's dumb and we won't do it anymore. This is all lining up way too perfectly. Like I feel like we cracked the code.
I think you did, because a lot of people looked at that chart and said, wait a sec. It's funny, man. So many times you'll point that out to people that don't understand, and you'll say, well, hold on, look at this. He keeps saying this is when he left office, but it's April of 2020, and they'll go, well, that's just he's close enough. Like, no, that's not how he works. So yeah, man, we've all been, since that chart, we've been wondering why the hell April. Not even since that chart, since, like you said, he started the April Fool stuff like a year ago. I think it was like spring of 23 about that. He did a few speeches where, one in particular, he said it like 17 times. Like he kept saying, "This is April Fool's," and we were like, "Well, does that mean something's going to happen? What is it? Is he nodding to the fact that this is all a movie we're watching? Like, what is it?" And then that chart, and yeah, I think you cracked the code, man. I really do.
Well, you know what's really funny, Dave? A lot of times when people like I was going to say beat me too, but what I mean is when somebody finds something before I find it, a lot of times I just keep going, right? Like I don't honestly take what the time I should to look at what they found. I was like, okay, that's really cool. That's a really cool point. That's not the day he really left office, but I didn't really look at it. And then at work, I was sitting there and I was just kind of scrolling, going through old stuff because, I was just having one of them blah moments in my head. And I looked at it and I looked at the date and I'm like, he said April Fool's like 100 times. Like that was pointed out well before I realized the April Fool's thing. And it was because I just kept digging in my direction. And then when I finally took a second to look at it, and I was like, it was like a switch went off in my head. And I only posted those two things. And then God bless Stormy Patriot Joe and his whole squad, because they go back. Like, this is what it's about, the hive mind part of working together.
That's how it's supposed to work, man. This is how it's supposed to work. There's simply no way for any one or two or even five people to do this stuff alone. Like, that's what's so beautiful about the way all this is working in the groups that we all operate in. There's no way. Everyone's got a different, but not to mention everyone's got a different, and for me personally, like, I have a lot of stuff archived and organized, but I'm not the most organized with it. But like, I need guys like you who are, right? And you put a clip up and I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Let me think of these other 3 posts I did. And same thing. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way it worked in the beginning. Right. And that's why you and I both have took the time to like study dudes like, Pepe and Stormy and all these other guys, and how the dudes that lived through it, because I always say it, that's the way it worked. Q would put a drop out there and everybody would post their different takes and merge them together. And then it's pretty cool and it works out that way. But that's a brilliant take, man. I like I said, I was blown away when I saw that. It makes so much sense, and so much sense.
Well, unfortunately, look, I could hang out with you guys all day, but if I don't go coordinate, I can hear the kids snapping at each other. It's chore day. They're supposed to get their chores done before Kim gets home. So I got to go do that so I can jump back on here in just an hour and a half from now. Do you want to promote your show? Let us know. Let anybody know what you guys have coming up. I hope anybody that watches just here and hasn't yet gone over to News Treason does so, because these guys are absolutely awesome. And that's why I keep doing shows with them. So do you guys want to let everybody know what you got coming up?
Mark, anything you want to start with?
I'm still in limbo as far as Sunday's concerned. Sunday, we usually do Respect at 8:00. Our guest this week was in Naples on the west coast of Florida, and I'm not sure if she's gotten back internet and power yet, or if she even lost internet and power. So we'll be checking. If so, we will have on a German journalist that I met in a Costco parking lot, and discussing how the woke population over in Germany is and dealing with the same things that we're dealing with here in the United States and the points of view that they have. So it should be an interesting conversation if it happens.
And for the rest of us, like I said, if you don't follow us, well, first of all, for anybody on our side that's come over from our platform that's new, please give Rambo a follow, give this video a thumbs up. And I put a post up yesterday because we hit 17,000 followers on X. So that was cool. But I encourage everybody not only to get on X, people keep saying, I got kicked off, I hate X. Okay, that's it doesn't matter. It's still important for everyone to be there. So just go get another free email address and sign up and follow Rambo, because this is what we're doing now. This is what he does all day. So please help him out. And as far as us, newstreason.com, that's the easiest way. That goes to our link tree. So you can follow on Rumble, Telegram, X, or whatever your preferred platform is. We are going to have a podcast broadcasting tonight at 8:00. If everything works out, otherwise it'll be tomorrow, but most likely tonight. That's going to be a little current events with kind of a surprise guest, somebody new that's going to be on the platform. Next week, obviously going to be on with Rambo and Zach over here. We're also going to have SG and on the same day as well, on the 15th, later in that day. A whole bunch of stuff coming up. Mike King every Wednesday. And Pepe should be joining us next week. I also have, this is going to be kind of cool to dive into something separate. I know a lot of people study the whole old world architecture, Tartaria, like that whole kind of rabbit hole, hidden history. We actually have somebody on that's been Chris from Old World Explorations on YouTube. That is exactly what he studies here all over the world, and particularly here in the United States. All of the architecture in our cities that is, if you really study and go down that rabbit hole, it is completely, the whole story behind it is fugazi. It's completely a lot older than what it is, and he does a lot of interesting work. So trying to also, in addition to everything we're doing here, try to bring in some alternative stuff as well. So a whole bunch of stuff coming up. And Rambo, as always, my friend, thank you. And real quick, remind everybody, all three of us are going to be in North Carolina next weekend, Selma, North Carolina, for the Reawaken America tour. So if you are in the area, want to come say hi, we will be there. It'd be really cool to meet everybody in person. So, and again, thanks, Rambo, as always.
I agree 100%. Guys, be back here in 1.5 hours for Carly Bonet, and special guest Pepe Deluxe will be stopping in to let us know exactly what he's got going on in North Carolina, ground zero of the hurricane that we were just talking about. You guys rule. I can't wait for that show with Red Pill 78, bro. It's going to be a blast. Mark, absolute honor to have you here. On this
Pleasure to join you. Thanks for having us.
All right, guys. Have a great afternoon. Talk to you later. Peace.